I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and here today with me is E.B. Tucker, Director at Metallo Royalty and Streaming and Nova Royalty, and author of the book Why Gold, Why Now? Thank you so much for being here online with me today.
Thanks for having me, Charlotte.
Of course, and we're here to wrap up the year with you. I think the last time we spoke was around the end of September, and you were calling for $2,500 gold and $40 silver by the end of the year. With 2 weeks left, do you think we're going to get there, or is this going to be a 2021 type of move now?
Yeah, we're gonna kick that out to next year. What's interesting is, and I want to give people some context into the gold market, which I'm watching now. I'm watching every day. I have a somewhat controversial view that I think people might be interested to hear. So we during the pandemic time, we actually saw people running out of physical gold. I wrote about this in the book. The spread between the financial market price and the physical price got really big, and then dealers couldn't get gold. And I have a theory that what happened was the bullion banks lost control of the price. You know, there's tremendous amounts of money changing hands in the futures market, and it never touches actual gold. So it's just like a financial product. And I think there were big losses in that market, and I think that's why we saw gold move up pretty substantially midsummer. And if you'll notice, the Russians sold just a small amount of gold for the first time in maybe 13 or 14 years. And that seemed to pacify the market, like to liquefy the market. And the gold price ran to 2080, and then it settled down to about 1850 where it is now, which I think is a very manageable level. Now, we watch this every day. What we see is overnight, the price will crater down, and then it'll come back up. And we know that when that happens, a lot of speculative traders are getting pushed out of positions. They have orders in, protection orders, stop orders. Those orders are blown out. And I think what's going to happen is we're going to sit at this level and see this choppy behavior until the level can't be maintained anymore. And then we'll go up to another level. And I know that sounds like a conspiratorial type thing, but I don't think gold trades as freely as people think.
Right. And just to clarify, so you would think that in gold's current price levels, there's an element of manipulation that's going on at the moment?
Well, that's the trouble, is that then people start saying, well, someone's manipulating it. And you say, well, I'm not sure that it's the same thing as having some degree of control over it. If I think the price, is a bargain right now. So, I mean, if you want to really do something about it, you maybe you buy a royalty stock that has exposure to future. Like, if you think, say you thought gold was supposed to be 2,500 now, and you have all these practical reasons for it, like the amount of debt in the world is just ballooned, and the spending is limitless, and there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. And if $2,500 gold, you say, well, boy, that's only like a minuscule fraction of the amount of debt that's been created in the last kind of period. So okay, well, if it's 1850, instead of getting bent out of shape and saying, well, someone is manipulating it, right? Just say, look, this is a market where there's some powerful interests that have control of this market here. I mean, until they don't, and I can buy gold for 1850. That's a bargain. So I mean, if Mercedes-Benz were being, kept undervalue, what would you do? Would you have a riot and protest? No, you would go buy one. Maybe you buy two. So I think, just like when we look back earlier this year, remember, gold's had a banner year. It's been a fantastic year for gold. Prices are much higher than the beginning of the year. And gold royalty companies like Metallo Royalty have had an even better year, because what they're doing is they're capturing future production, their royalties on future production for decades, and they're valuing that today. So Metallo is, almost, it's 14.95 as we speak, Canadian. It's had a phenomenal year. It's not quite doubled this year, but I mean, it's had a phenomenal year. It's done much better than gold, which is how it works. Because remember, we talk about in my book, gold is not really an investment, it's money. It's like your fire insurance. I mean, you're not really trying to make a killing off buying physical gold and selling it. This is a safety play. But a gold royalty company is most certainly an investment. And so if we think the gold price is a bit under where it really ought to be, what a fair value would be, right? Then
Mhm.
royalty companies a way to play it. And then how do you combat the manipulation, or whatever we want to call it? You buy some gold. That's it. Because you saw in March, April, people took physical gold, and there wasn't enough, and the price went higher. I think this is what we're going to see for some time now. We're never going back. The debt's never shrinking. The budget's never shrinking. There's a lot of things happening in the U.S. Joe Biden is going to be a weak dollar president. The whole time he's in office will be a weak dollar president. It's a trend. The dollar will go slowly down like this. They'll try to control it. So what benefits? Things that are priced in dollars like gold, copper, nickel, which we can talk about. But there's certain things that are set to benefit, and the companies that mine those, the countries that produce those, they're going to benefit. I was just in Brazil. I saw with my own eyes. I mean, some people are making a fortune there. So this is a trend. And so what you want to do is you want to position for the trend. I mean, forget about what's going to happen in the next week. The trend in gold is higher. We saw at the beginning of the year, if you got involved in the gold trade, you didn't even have to do a good job of it. You could have accidentally bought in February and ridden down in March, and you'd still be okay.
Right. And people do focus on those short-term elements, though. We've recently been hearing a lot about vaccine news, Bitcoin price rising, and all of these things that people mention when they talk about why the gold price is down. What would your comment be to people when they're focused on those kinds of things?
Well, let's separate all those things. First, Bitcoin. People ask me all the time about Bitcoin, and I tell them, they say, well, should I buy a Bitcoin? I say, do whatever you want. Do you think it's crazy to buy a Bitcoin? No, I don't think it's crazy to buy a Bitcoin. It'd probably go to $100,000. I mean, the market cap of Bitcoin is like a 1/30th of the gold market cap, or close to that. I mean, someone will do the math and complain on the message board that we were off by 1%. But I mean, it's got a long way to go. But Bitcoin is not gold, and gold is not Bitcoin. So you can't confuse these things. All this week, everybody's been sending me, you see people are selling the gold ETF and buying Bitcoin. It's not true. It's not the same thing. It's different. So you're not buying gold. You're not buying Bitcoin in place of gold, and you're not buying gold in place of Bitcoin. Okay. So people conflate these things. It's a huge mistake. You got to see them separately. Bitcoin's got a lot of momentum behind it. It's got a short supply. It's got a lot of fundamentals right now that make it very, very exciting. And I think you buy that as a trade. You don't be ideological about it. Don't be like, I'm going to be using Bitcoin to buy gas. Just like you're not going to be using gold to buy gas either. Okay. But you can make money in this. What do you want to do? You want to be right, or you want to make money? That's what people need to figure out.
All right. So you summed up 2020 for gold and silver for us, saying, overall, it's been a good year. We shouldn't forget that. What do you see coming for 2021? We've talked about the price levels. Which metal do you think will put on the best performance next year out of gold and silver?
Silver, definitely. I mean, silver's going to be the mover, and the reason why that's the case is because silver doesn't have the ability to bring additional supply online quickly. So, there's not a lot of silver mines in the world that are just silver mines. I mean, there are some, but there's not a lot of them. Whereas gold, there's some primary gold mines. You can play with that a little bit. But let's talk about the first thing that you said. It's crazy to me that we'll see, like take Metalla, for example. We'll have a year where you have, not quite a double in the share price. And people will say, I just need it to be faster. And you say, you guys, I don't know how to tell you this any other polite way, but I mean, if you nearly double your money every year for 4 or 5 years, you can't even spend it all. I mean, so what you got to do is you got to get the trade right. Remember, we started Metalla 4 years ago. The reason why we did that is gold was we thought very cheap, and the mining industry was in disarray, and grown men had their face in their hands. They were devastated. They were going to just quit the business forever and become pot company CEOs. And so we started buying royalties. We got 62 royalties now. And so the stock price started at $1.20 Canadian. It's $14.95 today. Okay. Why am I telling you this? Because you got to get that trade right. So the next trade you got to get right is green energy. So let me just tell you in simple terms, over the next 30 years to hit the goals that the major economies of the world have by 2050 for decarbonization, you're going to need 2.1 times as much copper as you needed the last 30 years, which during the last 30 years, I mean, you were wiring up the world, with globalization. Okay. You're going to need 3 times as much nickel to make all these things happen. Where are you going to get this stuff? Nobody's been investing in these things. They've been investing in fake meat and magic mushrooms and pot companies and all this different stuff, right? Where's it going to come from? That's what you got to see. And so we started Nova Royalty and took that public in October with 17 copper and nickel royalties. Okay, and so what you're gonna, it's very, to us it looks very obvious. Copper broke out to 350. Copper could go to $4 next year. Nickel broke out to $8. It could go to $10 next year. This is serious price moves. And how are you going to play them? Are you going to spend all your time on a message board looking for the next 2-cent stock that you think is going to find a nickel project? It's a bad idea. I'll tell you why. Because this is not the gold market. Nickel and copper are humongous projects that take billions of dollars in capex, and only the biggest and best companies typically make them work. Now, maybe you're going to find a small copper company that makes a project work. It is possible, but I'm looking at my age to catch the trend, and I'm going to call it the easy money trade. I don't want to be turning over trading all the time in and out of things, quickly generating lots of taxable gains, paying lots of tax. I want to buy the trend and I want to ride that trend. These things usually last, call it 2 to 5 years or something. You want to ride that trend and you want to do it the easiest way possible, which means getting lots of sleep at night, having a good time, and not being troubled by, lots of volatility and looking around for the next great, promotional stock. What you want to do is you want to catch the whole wave and just ride it.
Right. So copper and nickel, those are the metals Nova Royalty is focused on. And you're interested in that green energy story that's coming up. There are also, of course, big industrial metals as well. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about what that element plays in their story right now.
Yeah, I mean, you got to remember too that like regular cars that combustion engine cars use about 50 pounds of copper. Well, the EV car uses, call it 100. I mean, some of them use more, some of them use less. Electric bus, can use between 150 and up to 800 pounds of copper. So I mean, then you got to look at what do you do with all this green energy once you produce it. I mean, like in BC, you got all the hydro energy. Well, what if your demand is down, it's the middle of the night and you're producing all this energy? What do you do with the energy? You got to store it. You need batteries. So the industrial need for these metals is changing. Okay, so you're just using them for different things, but the things you're using them for are brand new. There's never been such a thing as grid storage for green energy. There's never been a scenario where there were so many solar panels, in the Arizona subdivision that you couldn't store all the power they produced. It's never been like that before. So this is completely new industries. I see these people marching around for green energy and I cheer them on and I tell them, listen, make it happen faster, and then who's going to pay for it? I'm not worried about that. So they'll put some more taxes on everybody. Okay. So you got to see the big picture. And this is the new industry. This is the industry that's coming. The cars, electric vehicles will be 1%, 2%, 3%, 10%, 20%. Finally, it'll be 90%. You'll have like a classic Porsches and these things that probably still burn gas, but this is how people are going to get around. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if airplanes or I toured the Boeing facility a few years ago. The guy was telling me, he was saying his opinion, the engineer that took me around, he's like, we can probably fly these things with electric power someday. I mean, this is a whole new industry that's unfolding right in front of our very eyes. Trillions of dollars of opportunity. People, it's not hype. People got to get over that. It's not like talking about flying cars. That's a little ways away. I mean, my son probably will have a flying car, but that's not really an investable idea right now.
No, probably not right at this moment.
That's right.
For copper and nickel, I wondered if you could put, we mentioned that they're at elevated price levels right now. I don't know if people are as familiar with their historical price action as they might be for something like gold and silver. So could you help us understand that?
Yeah, you had a kind of a blowout in copper in 2011, where people thought it was kind of pushing the $5 area, and J.P. Morgan started a copper ETF, physical copper ETF, and things got a little wacky and overinvested, and then the price, the price cooled down into, let's just call it low twos. And you had copper. Copper was kind of a dog for a few years, and people associated it with some things from last century that kind of were bellwethers. They thought it had a read on economics, as an economic indicator of activity, but a lot of that's changing, because you didn't, when that was a great indicator, you didn't have the tech space kind of like being, clicks and page views, and these things weren't really a factor back when that was the case. So I would actually give that up if that's your take on copper, and I would say this is the future is not going to be like the past. So I'm going to need to like reorient my thinking. But so you got copper 350 today. I mean, a lot of people are having a hard time with this. I have a very good friend, is a shareholder of Nova Royalty as well. I don't think he'd mind me saying, but he has a huge electrical company. And I was telling him copper was going to go higher when it was like 275, and he was like, I don't know. Now it's 350, and he's like, what do I do now? And I said, I hate to tell you, man, but it can go to 4 too. So because if you fly into Salt Lake City Airport, you fly over Bingham Canyon mine, which is so big you can see it from outer space, and that's over 100 years of copper production, and they're just not discovering big, beautiful, new, high grade copper mines as rapidly as you would think. Now, of course, there are some. Yes, I mean, First Quantum, and we have a royalty on one of their big assets, and Teck and Newmont have a big project in Chile. We have a royalty on. Okay, so there are some big ones, but not to the degree that you would think. I mean, I would say not, and the grades aren't really as exciting as you would expect them to be. So copper can go into the 4s. It could probably go over 4 next year. All right, so nickel. All right, nickel's different. Now, again, you're priced by the pound. Remember, gold, we're talking about troy ounces. Here, we're just talking about crude pounds. And nickel is about $8 a pound right now. And there are different types of nickel. There's 2 different types. One is good for batteries, and one is generally not. I mean, you can make the batteries from it, but it's very complicated. So nickel can go over $20. I mean, we're calling for 10 next year, but nickel's been over $20 before. 2008, it had a speculative run. It was pretty short lived, and then it took like a numerous years of struggling, and price was all the way down into the low single digits. So the problem with nickel is that stainless steel and other industrial applications are what you use nickel in. And the battery demand, go online, look at any report that's coming out on battery demand, it's through the roof. It's a completely new source of demand. So everybody says, well, stainless steel grows at 1% a year. I mean, how many refrigerators can you make? Okay, that's fine. But 45 kilograms of nickel per Tesla. Okay, now you're talking. I mean, that's a lot, and that's totally new, because 30 years ago there was no such thing, as an electric car battery demand. So people need to understand that this is not like gold, where you don't need to go out and buy, big blocks of copper. It's not like wealth storage. What you're doing though is you're looking at the electric vehicle green energy trend, and you're saying we're not going back. We're not going back. I mean, you're going to go 30 years from now, you're going to go to even an island nation that used to burn diesel for power, and you're going to look around. There's going to be batteries. There's going to be solar panels. There's going to be wind turbines. I mean, you need a tremendous amount of these metals we're talking about to make all these things. And so you want to play that. You want to ride that. When you see socialist American politicians asking for $2 trillion for green energy, you tell them make it 4, because we're gonna need to find the nickel and copper, and Nova Royalty hopefully will have royalties on all of it.
Okay, so really the gold and silver story looks very promising. Nickel, copper, green energy story also looks very promising. If we put on our extremely bearish hats and look at it, is there anything that could throw these stories off of the direction that they're going? Is that even possible at this point?
So I think the thing that people need to watch for, that's going to take people several years to figure out what's happening, is that they're going to be experiencing inflation, and it's not going to be like the inflation from the 70s. Okay, it's not going to be, what was happening, gas lines and all this stuff. People need to get that out of their head. What's going to happen is you're going to have, Fed's going to say hypothetically there's 3% inflation or something, right? Like the Fed's telling you right now that they're trying to get inflation, and then they say they're getting 2%, but everybody can tell that the price is going up more. I mean, all this COVID stuff, the shutdown, as things are coming back online, the prices are higher. I cannot tell you how many things I'm doing where the supply is short. They blame it on COVID and the prices are going up. Okay, so everybody can feel the prices going up, or go to the grocery store, nothing's on sale. You know what I'm talking about. So you're going to have inflation at, call it 3 or 4%. The Fed's going to say, well, it's 2. After we changed all the numbers around, it's 2, but it really is 3 or 4. And then the 10-year Treasury, it's about to hit 1 over my shoulder right here right now. But let's say the 10-year Treasury is 2%. And then people are going to be like, wow, that's a lot. That's a great return. I've been getting 0 for a long time. Now I'm getting 2. But the real inflation's 4. Do you get where I'm going with this? So you're going to think you're doing better, but you're actually doing worse. So people are not going to be able to figure this out, Charlotte. It's going to take them a long time, and we're going to tell them they're not going to know what we're talking about. So they're going to finally catch on, and they're going to panic. Okay, and so when they panic, they're going to say, "Wait a minute, I'm actually losing money by having money around." So that's what people need to worry about, because there's going to be some industries and sectors that don't do well in that environment because wages are going up. Like in Florida, we just voted for a minimum wage increase, and people asked me, why were you in favor of that? I said, because $20 US an hour is going to be the new struggling. People are going to need that. They're going to need that money. You need 25. Believe me, they're going to be riding an electric bus around town with a bunch of copper and nickel in it and making $25 an hour. And they're going to feel poor. We don't want your viewers to feel poor. That's why we're going to help people understand this now instead of panic 3 years from now.
Right. Okay. And looking forward at 2021, I'm going to assume that you have your portfolio positioned how you want it for the years ahead. What would prompt you next year, if we're looking there, to be making changes or making moves yourself?
Uh, well, if one of my companies were taken over, that would change things. But I mean, I've bought a lot of stock in the companies where I'm on the board. Metalla and Nova, and these companies. You got to understand that this is an investment, a huge investment for me, and an investment that I'm very involved in. I mean, that's why I'm on the board. That's why I'm very involved. That's why I'm talking to the management team constantly. I mean, I'm not a person that wants to sit on the board just for something to do. So if I'm involved, I'm involved with my own money. And this is all, people can look this stuff up. I mean, you can mess around on Google for a little bit and figure out what I'm talking about. But I mean, I have a lot of capital, at work in these trends that I'm talking about. I don't have any newsletter to sell or anything. I mean, it's like, this is a big trade. I'm very confident in the trade. I mean, think about with Metalla. People thought I was nuts for that, but I'm buying stock at $1.20. It's $14.95. I mean, it doesn't look so crazy now. And it's a $575 million company, and it was 15 million when I started buying stocks. So, I mean, but this is the definition of riding a wave. So I tend to be very heavily invested in these types of things. Now I have other stuff going on too. I have some real estate. I'm not very excited about real estate, but I'm also not really looking to sell the real estate, because I bought this stuff in 2010, and I'm raising rent on all the properties that I have right now, all of them. So I mean, I think it's crazy to sell those and pay a lot of tax and then try to find something else to buy. Charlotte, the one thing I try to tell younger people is you don't have to make but so many decisions. Everybody thinks that, because people think I'm a trader. They say, well, are you a trader? I go, well, I'm probably buying something. I'm doing something in the market probably 4 days a week. I mean, I'm like pretty active, but I'm not really trading. Like, I'm getting into something and I'm kind of buying it, every day or every other day, for a while. And I'm kind of like involved in that and doing something with it all the time. But I'm not making that many decisions. I'm not making big decisions very often. I make the decision that I'm interested in real estate in 2010, and I spent about 18 months buying real estate. Okay, so am I flipping real estate? No. I mean, I'm getting involved in that. I made the decision with the gold royalties 2016 December. I'm buying that stock as recently as last week. I'm still, I'm very kind of concentrated. I'm not trying to have maybe a little over here and a little over here and a little over here. Now this is totally against your financial advisor. It tells you diversification is the only way to do it. I'm not that diversified, but it's worked out very, very well for me. So maybe when I'm older and I'm not working at all, I'm not involved with anything, and I'm just kind of like playing golf every day or something, maybe then I would be more diversified. But right now I can see what's happening, is at least in my opinion. I can see what I think is going to happen, and I don't mind. I don't mind making big bets on my ability to shepherd a company through that. And of course, there's a lot of other people involved, and be clear about that. There's Alex Sukernick runs Nova, and he is exceptional. So he's really the brains of the operation. I'm only lucky enough to be able to help him, but it's fun. It's fun to do something when you have momentum, and the shareholders are getting excited and companies getting real deals done, and these royalties are going to become much more valuable in the future, I believe.
Okay, that's very helpful. As we're wrapping up here, I want to ask, you've given us a lot of advice over the year and definitely in this interview, but best piece of advice for investors as we head into the new year? I've been asking this question a lot because I love the answers that I get.
Yeah, the future is not going to be like the past. I mean, everybody struggles with that, but it's not going to be like the past. You're going to turn around and you're going to look and you say, how did I not see it? And we're telling you about it now. In fact, I wrote the book, Why Gold, Why Now, so quickly because this message needed to get out in 2020. And if somebody out there didn't read it, you can get it in Canada or the US or Europe, most of Asia, delivered to you instantly from Amazon, Kindle and Audible. And the book is very powerful because I'm telling you exactly what I'm doing, and why I'm doing it, and my whole thought process. The goal is by the end of the book, you don't need me anymore. You can see the whole. You can see the whole story, right? So first thing is let go of what you think is going to happen, because it's not going to happen, and start trying to perceive what you see in front of you, and realize the future is not going to be like the past. That's the number one thing people should try to do as you have this quiet time around the holidays to reflect and look at next year.
Okay, well, perfect. I think we can leave it there. Thank you so much, as always, for sitting down to talk. It's great to get your thoughts.
Thanks for having me, Charlotte.
Once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing is Network, and this is EB Tucker.